Well, this is genuinely impressive. I wasn't expecting this. Going out on a limb here to say this is probably one of the best cars we've tested off-road here. It is just very straightforward and easy. Fuel tank over here, it has protection, but it's plastic. Yeah, plastic is an interesting choice. G'day, I'm Paul. This is the new Kia Tasman. Before I get started though, tell me what you reckon about the design in the comments section below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you think they could have done better? I'm going to run through design stuff in just a second. The entire range kicks off at around $43,000 for the dual cab pickup. And it caps out here at this top spec called the X-Pro at just under $75,000 before on-road cost. To put that into context, that is around the same price as a V6 Ford Ranger Wildtrak. This is a 4-cylinder. So yeah, pricing strategy is very interesting. They have already announced drive-away pricing, which tells me that people perhaps haven't rushed into dealerships to sign up for this. They often wait for drive-away pricing, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. Now, if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this detailed review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now, design, it is entirely subjective. So whether I like or don't like the design is kind of irrelevant. You're the one buying it, and the design, whether you like it or not, is entirely up to you. So I'm going to run you through the design highlights. So full LED headlights with an LED daytime running light, and that's a vertical stack over here. LED fog lights as well. And then you've got these sort of piano black bits tacked on here and on this lower section as well. Camera integrated down here as well for the 360 camera. And then all of this stuff down here is plastic with the Kia logo there. Now, I did mention as well when we first looked at this car in Tassie that this is just a poor design from a functionality point of view, because if you are doing a lot of off-road driving or any off-road driving, you'll actually notice down the sides of this car, there are scrape marks from the launch event. And that's obviously from bushes and other stuff that you encounter on off-road trails. If you're encountering bushes and stuff, you're likely to encounter sort of errant branches, and they are just going to smash right through that. And if you lose your headlights while you're off-road, you're going to be in a spot of bother if you need to drive at night. So I think that is a poor design, and that is something that they need to address, because that is way too wide of the body there for that location, for that headlight. Around the side here, you've got all-terrain tyres for the X-Pro. So it's a pretty chunky set of all-terrain. So I'll be curious to see how this goes up against our sound meter and whether it has a lot of noise that comes into the cabin. But yeah, it's a set of 17s, piano black finish on the wheel there. Now, the wheel arches, front and rear, have black cladding on them. You can actually get this in a body-coloured style depending on which variant you go for. I don't know. I just think from side on that the black just doesn't work well with some colours. It's just it's a strange looking setup, but with body coloured panels it actually looks significantly better. But anyway, that is my opinion. Piano black on the wing mirrors there, with camera built into there and then an indicator built into there as well. Got roof rails here, a sunroof as well. You've got privacy glass. Then you've got this section that kicks up to the side, which is a bit of an interesting setup. One thing I did find when I was trying to get my daughter into the car, there's no side steps here. You can get side steps, but I don't know just how high the ute is, and bucky, whatever you want to call it, pickup truck. It is tricky to get in and out if you do have kids. So I would get side steps if you are planning on moving kids around. Even as an adult, it can be a little bit tricky to maneuver in and out when it is this high. This bit's pretty cool. So you've got storage off to the side. It's a bit like a Ram box that you're going to find in a Ram 1500. Quite like the sort of versatility of it. And it will tell you as well if you have driven off with this open. Even if it's slightly ajar, it will tell you, it'll beep and bong at you and tell you that it is open. You need to get out and fix it. Disc brakes on the rear. You've got leaf springs there. I'm going to run you through the whole underbody as a portion of this video. You can skip ahead to that now, or you can just wait for it, but it'll be just before we go for a drive. I'm going to run through the entire underbody and just show you some of the interesting things that I've found under there. Similar to Ranger, they've got bits that pop out here for canopies and whatever other accessories you want to add to the vehicle. Come right to the back with me. Around the back, you've got full LED tail lights. You've got a side step there to retrieve things from the tray. You've got the X-Pro badging down here, Tasman in individual lettering, and then Kia embossed onto there. You've got a camera built into here, brake light built into this section as well, and then a 3.5 ton braked towing capacity is available. The other interesting thing too, basically all the variants have over a ton of payload. But if you are doing a novated lease, you can't have over a ton of payload. So you can, as a no-cost option, get this reduced to just under a tonne, so that sorts that problem out as well. In here you've got a button to release the tray, and then the tray is spring loaded as well, so within here you've actually got springs that make it easier to drop down. It sort of doesn't just slam down with these cables to hold it in place. You've got a plastic bed liner in there with lights off to the side. And then over here, what have we got? Is it a power outlet? 240 volt, 400 watt power outlet in the tray there, which is pretty cool. Now, in terms of dimensions, the tub is 1,512 millimeters long, 1,572 millimeters wide, with just under 1190 between the wheel arches, and then a depth of around 500 mils. So pretty reasonable specs there. You've also got this tie down system on the side that slides backwards and forwards and allows you to sort of tie down objects that are in your tray. So let me know what you reckon about all of that for Kia Tasman. Do you love the look of it? Hate the look of it? What do you think of the pricing? Do you think it is too expensive? I'm keen for your thoughts in the comment section below. So we're inside the Tasman. I will show you what the key looks like. So you've got the Kia logo there, and then when you push a button, it lights up. Kia logo on the back there as well. Then you've got lock, unlock, a button there to drop the tailgate, remote start, and then also a feature to get you out of tight parking spaces, which is handy, I guess. So it's a proximity sensing key. You can leave that in your pocket. The push button start is here on the gear stick, and the gear stick is this big knobby thing. You operate it like you do in an Ioniq 5, and then the push button start is integrated into there as well. So I said this at the launch. I think this interior feels super high quality and just top notch, and you would expect it to be high quality and top notch for $75,000 odd. But if you compare it to like a Ford Ranger, for example, it does feel more premium. It feels like they've gone to a lot more effort to make this more car-like as opposed to dual cab-like. Even stuff like these materials here, you can see they've got sort of flecks of material in there. It just looks, I don't know, yeah, even this, like you got measurements of the car, just funny little bits and pieces just to make it feel a bit nicer. In terms of touch points though, center armrest, pretty firm to the touch, soft on the door though. How soft is it all? We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, there is a link in the description below. Build quality. Let's see what it feels like. That all feels pretty solid. Nice. We'll see what this is like in a few years' time. They're using like an unknown engine in a dual cab ute application. It's their first time doing something like this. So we'll see what it's like in the longer term. And this is what your door slam sounds like. Now let's talk about infotainment. You've got two 12.3-inch displays, a smaller 5-inch display in the center there. Then you've also got some buttons down here as well to operate air conditioning and then shortcuts for the infotainment system. This is the latest version of Kia's infotainment system, so it's connected to the internet. It means you can remotely communicate with the car. And in addition to what you'd find in a typical like Kia SUV, you've actually got a few extra bits and pieces here. You've got an off-road menu that I'll show you once we go off-road, but really cool animation there once you sort of boot that up. And then if you jump over here, you've got a trailer menu as well. This particular car has a brake controller fitted to it, but no tow bar. But you can see here stuff like checklists. So if you are heading away, you can triple check that everything is all set up the way that it needs to be. Active weather, voice memo, and other sort of bits and pieces. In terms of smartphone connectivity, you've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wireless on both fronts, nice and fast and snappy. Which is good, and then you can use these shortcut buttons to take you back to the home menu if you need it. And this is what Android Auto looks like. So wireless as well, full screen, nice and snappy. Okay, same thing with every new Kia I've driven with this setup, but I can't see that climate control screen because the steering wheel's in the way. I just can't understand why you would put that there. Very odd placement. Thankfully, you don't really need to interact with it much because you can just use your temperature controls here, fan speed. But yeah, just a bit of a weird one. One thing I did notice, and normally I talk about this when we do our reach test, but they missed a great opportunity here to have a lip down the bottom that I can rest fingers on, because what happens is if you've got Waze or something running and you need to enter an address or do something, you'd normally just put your fingers here and then you're able to click on buttons and stuff, but you don't actually have anything to hold on to, so you kind of have to grab the top of the screen. You've got to lean in for it. It's a bit of a clumsy arrangement, so I think that definitely could be better. On the audio front, you have AM, FM, and DAB radio through a 12-speaker Harman Kardon branded sound system. Good sound system, not quite as good as the JBL sound system in the HiLux, but still pretty reasonable for a car like this. You have sounds of nature as well if you do want to stay in a nice serene environment. Screen ahead of the driver, again, different from other Kia SUV products. You've got a whole bunch of off-road displays that you can flick through. So there's actually quite a bit of useful information there along with that trailer display as well. So they've done a good job with that integration, and it's quite impressive how it all sort of comes up there. Let's talk about parking. Front rear parking sensors, 360-degree camera. I'll show you what that looks like. So quality of that's pretty good. That's our broken registration plate. That was my fault. And then top-down view over here. And then what you can do is select other views as well. So you can do front, wide-angle front. Yeah. Look, camera quality at the back is actually not too bad there, but some of those angles are not amazing. Like that one's a little bit blurry there, but you know, it's actually, it's fine, does the job. And there's your 360 as well. What else have we got here? That's it. And then this is what the horn sounds like. Now let's talk about practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity options. So down here you've got two USB-C outlets. You can actually actively switch between data and charging, so you can run your smartphone mirroring on data if you want. Two wireless phone chargers. You've also got a 12-volt outlet here in the center console. On the storage front, plenty of storage. So down there, a couple of cup holders, this little slot here, reasonably sized center console. There is this glove box down here, which is, what's that? That's a little glass breaker. Very cool. You've got this up here, which is another kind of redundant little slot for stuff. You might be wondering, where is your sunglasses holder? Well, I'm sort of looking high and low, and then I found this. I reckon you could fit some sunnies in there. It would just be very hard to get to while you're driving. You'd have to kind of reach back, flick it up, and faff around with that a little bit. It'd just be easier if they were up there. But anyway, beggars can't be choosers. But on the upside, even if you can't get your sunnies, you can have a table to do your invoices and stuff like that on, where you're probably going to charge us an extra 30 or 40%, or even just not turn up to a job. No, I'm sure the CarExpert tradies are good people. On the comfort front, dual zone automatic climate control. Here on the door, you've got heated and cooled seats. You've got heated steering wheel. Passenger has heated and cooled seats. Both driver and front passenger seats are electrically adjustable, so you can go forwards and backwards. Backrest can go forwards and backwards. You can lift the front of the seat, the back of the seat, and then you have lumbar adjustment as well with memory for the driver. And then you also have tilt and reach adjustable steering. And as I mentioned before on the reach test, stuff on that side is a little bit harder to reach, and it's just missing that little lip there to lean on. Now, before we jump in, you can see they've actually thought about this. You know, if you're designing a ute from the ground up, you kind of have a bit of flexibility in terms of how it all works out. So behind here, you've got two top tether points, one on each side. There isn't really any storage behind here, and that appears to be the subwoofer for the sound system. But beneath the two sets of seats that you've got, actually have under-seat storage. This is the brake controller. But you've got space in here to put little odds and ends, so that all sort of works out nicely. Grab handle once you want to hop inside. In terms of space, this is actually pretty reasonable. So knee room isn't too bad. Toe room, a little bit compromised, but not the end of the world. I've got my seat sitting quite far down. Grab handle up the top there. You've got heated seats for your rear seats. There's sort of wetsuit material for storage of items in there, plus a little phone holder in there. Two USB-C outlets here. You've got a 240 volt outlet with 400 watts down there, air vents, so all sort of really decent there. Then there is a little grab handle here, which reclines the seats as well. So obviously not much use if you're an adult, because you're going to be wedged into there. But if you don't want to kick back and relax a bit, you don't have a really tall driver, you can probably sort of sit back and enjoy yourself. And then center armrest there with a couple of cup holders and a device holder. So this is an excellent place back here. They've kind of ticked every single box in terms of the things that you need. Doesn't feel cheap back here. It sort of just does everything. So, all right, does the window go all the way down? So it's manual up and down. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. Now, before we go for a drive, I wanted to show you under the Kia Tasman so you can get a better idea of what it looks like and just some of the interesting stuff that we've found as we're poking around here. So up the front here, you have tie downs. These are not rated recovery points, but you can get rated recovery points as an accessory, and they have a rating of, I think, 8,000 kilos. You can see here as well, this car was used for the launch, so it's got a little bit of scratching on this plastic section. Underbody protection, it's steel up the front here for this section and this section here under the engine. You've got an anti-roll bar there as well. And then we'll duck in under here to have a bit of a closer look. Now, this part is interesting. You've got a driveline that runs from the engine down to here. And before I run you through the transfer case, have a look at this bracing here. This is interesting to me because it looks like it was maybe an afterthought. It doesn't sort of feel like it was meant to be there, and perhaps they found when they were loading this up that they needed a bit more structural integrity here, and maybe that's why they added it in. I don't know for certain, but yeah, it just seems like a bit of an odd thing to throw in there. You can see the diesel particulate filter is located up the top there, so it's tucked right up there next to the engine. Instead of being down here, which is where you're going to find it in some of the other vehicles. It is possible that they've left a lot of space here, and you'll see as we get closer to the back for hybridisation of sorts and future-proofing this. And that's maybe why they've tucked all of that stuff under the top there. So transfer case up the top here. This has the ability to switch between two-wheel drive high range, four-wheel drive auto for on-road driving, and then also a four-wheel drive high range and low range mode. So up here is interesting. There is an all-wheel drive ECU module, and this is what gives the Tasman the ability to drive as a four-wheel drive on sealed surfaces. And you can't do that in some dual cab utes. And we actually shot a video explaining why. You can click up there to watch that. I don't know where that's from, but it has both a Hyundai and a Kia brand on it, and it appears to be from like a passenger vehicle. So I don't know how they've integrated an all-wheel drive system within this transfer case. It could just be like an on-off style system. I don't know if there's any degrees of slippage, but yeah, just something interesting to see there. And if we jump through to the back here, we've got fuel tank over here. It has protection, but it's plastic, so nothing too special there. And it's tucked up fairly high, so it's not like you're gonna bash that too much. You're gonna hit the diff before you hit that fuel tank, but yeah, plastic is an interesting choice. This is another part that I find interesting. So you've got the diff here. Off to the side of the diff, you've got the dampers, and the dampers sit inboard of the chassis rails. We saw with the next generation Ranger and also the updates they did to HiLux Rogue and GR Sport. When they widened the track, they actually moved those dampers to the outside of the chassis rails to give them better stability when cornering. So it'll be interesting to see what this feels like when the speed picks up, and also on some of the corrugations that we have, to see whether that affects the handling performance. You'll notice as well, these bump stops have contacted the chassis rails up here and over here as well. So I don't know what they were doing at the launch, whether the cars were fully loaded and hitting sine waves, but you can see there has been contact with the chassis. You can also see here that the lower load spring sort of sits inverted, so that you're going to hit a point when this is under load that you get that compression, and this is basically where it stops. It won't really compress beyond that. So you've got a bump stop up the top there and this lower load spring that's going to stop movement. So I do suspect that when you are on the sine waves and it is bouncing, when you do hit that lower part of that compression, it is going to feel quite abrupt. And then finally, around the back here, we've got the spare tyre, and then also all of your safety equipment. So they've got all the radar sensors there for your rear cross traffic alert. And then this car obviously doesn't have a tow bar fitted, but when it is fitted, it sits along here and hangs out the back there. So that is a quick look under the Kia Tasman. Let's go for a spin. Okie dokie, we've just hit the road in the Kia Tasman. I'm going to run you through all the stuff in a sec, but let me just talk about the beeps and the bongs to start with, all the safety stuff that's now mandatory for these guys to get a 5-star safety rating. Stuff like speed sign recognition doesn't work well at all. It keeps reading the wrong speeds, and then it just constantly beeps at you every single time you're over the speed it thinks it is, or when it enters a new speed zone. So to turn that off, you have to sort of have the car on, push and hold the OK button, go through menus and faff around. It does have a driver attention monitor, which I've actually found to be not that bad. I've spent quite a few days now in this, and that hasn't gone off anywhere near as much as I thought it would. So that's been tuned pretty well, and I've switched off the lane departure warning just for our drive here on the ride and handling track, so I'll be sort of in and out of the lanes. Now, off to the important stuff. Let's talk about the drivetrain. So Kia Tasman uses what I thought was going to be fairly disappointing, and at the launch when they announced that this was getting a 2.2 litre diesel and no V6 or no other engine option for the Australian market, I thought, that's a bit grim. So this uses a 2.2 litre diesel out of the Sorento, turbocharged 4-cylinder. It does produce 154 kilowatts of power, which is fairly healthy, but unfortunately only 440 newton meters of torque. So it's quite a low torque figure compared to a lot of the other dual cabs in this segment. Stuff like Ranger and standard HiLux variants, they're sitting at 500 newton meters, and it goes up to 550 newton meters when you get to that to the top spec HiLux. So Not great from that point of view. It is all mated to an 8-speed auto, and you know, if you give it a punch, it's not that bad. Like, it's not amazing, but it's also not anywhere near as sluggish as I thought it was going to be at 440. So it's okay from that point of view. What they've done, just to be a little bit creative and to make this feel perkier than it is, they've given the transmission a very aggressive shift pattern. So what you'll notice is you just breathe on the throttle and it will start diving back through the gears. So what you find is it is constantly hunting. It's constantly going up and down through gears, and it becomes very tiring, especially if you're on like a road where it's got quite a decent incline. If you get stuck behind a bit of traffic, it'll start diving back through gears. And yeah, it just gets pretty tiresome. So you find that it's always sitting around that 2000 RPM mark, and then you breathe on the throttle and it's back through the gears. So that is unfortunately a side effect of having such a small engine. So not the end of the world, but just something to take note of. One of the good things is you can drive this in 2-wheel drive high range on sealed surfaces, but they also have a 4-wheel drive automatic mode. So that 4-wheel drive auto mode allows you to drive it on sealed surfaces like this without causing any issues. Interestingly, it sets itself back to 4A automatically every single time you start the car. So even if you do switch it back to 2H, it will be back in 4A when you start the vehicle again. So again, not the end of the world, but just something worth taking note of. Now, in terms of fuel economy, Kia claims a combined average of a little over 8 litres per 100 Ks. We're sitting on 9 at the moment, so near enough and pretty reasonable for a 4-cylinder dual cab ute. Now let's attack our sine waves. So I mentioned before when we were looking underneath the vehicle that it did look like it had hit its bump stops a couple of times there. So see what it's like now when we dial up 130 Ks here for our sine waves. Actually, there is a fair bit of body roll. Alrighty, here we go. So there's 130. See what the body control's like. Yeah, that is a bit all over the place. I don't know, it feels okay, but once it gets a bounce on, it really just feels a bit uneasy. And I did actually sort of feel a bit of sort of scuttle shake through the body when you hit bumps as you're sort of approaching corners and stuff. So yeah, it's not amazing, but it is, you know, dual cab ute on leaf springs. There's not really a great deal they can do with it. I'd be curious to see what it's like without these all-terrains. I haven't driven just a standard one, so we'll have a crack in one of those shortly. Okay, see what it's like on our bouncy road. So this is a terrible quality road. Do this at 90 Ks an hour. The ride just in general, I don't know, feels a bit busy to me. I noticed sort of on the highway and even on this sort of stuff here, you can hear it in my voice that there's just a fair bit going on beneath the skin there. Here's our condensed sine wave. Yeah, the ride is just, it's on the firmer side, and as a result of that, it just feels busy over just minor imperfections on the road. It's not that bad. You kind of get used to it, but I think it's probably something they need to have a look at, and perhaps it is just limited to this model here with the all-terrains. We'll see once we get our hands on one of the more standard cars. I would have thought with big all-terrains like the ones fitted to this, it would be quite noisy on coarse chip roads, but it is fairly quiet when you're on the highway. It's not really that bad. We did put it up against our calibrated sound meter, and this is how it went. If you do want to see how this car compares to others in this segment, there is a link in the description below. Let's chat visibility. So I can see clearly down the front, and it's interesting, those black little mascara bits or whatever they are on the front of the bonnet there, they actually stick up a little bit, so it gives you a really good indication of where the front edge of the car is. Nice and decent sized wing mirrors there as well, and good visibility out the back too. So from that point of view, it's pretty decent. Just on towing, do you guys want us to get the car back to do a towing test? This car doesn't have a tow bar on it, but if you're keen on that, we'll find one with a tow bar and see what it's like when it's a bit of load attached to the back of it. Now I'm going to pop this into sport mode. We test all cars back to back in the same way. I want to see what it's like around the ride and handling track. Just gives us a good idea of what vehicles are like when limit handling and how it compares to some of the competitors. Brake pedal feels good. Yeah, fair bit of body roll there. But tell you what, it's pretty predictable. These all-terrains don't have a huge amount of traction, but pretty predictable in terms of how it feels. And yeah, once the speed picks up, it doesn't feel all that fast. But look, it is holding holding its own. Yeah, I'd be really curious to see what this is like without all-terrains, because it's actually doing a reasonable job here. Yeah, you can see they've actually put a bit of effort into, yeah, there's that scuttle shake. The back just feels a little bit disconnected from the front. But yeah, aside from that, it's actually sort of motoring along pretty nicely. And that 4A mode is doing a great job of giving us all the traction that we need. Steering feel is excellent, despite the size of the vehicle. All right, there's the back straight, sort of just moving along okay. Yeah, so there you go. Not the punchiest thing in the world, but actually holds its own through a couple of corners. Okay, time to test the semi-autonomous systems. Do this at 70 k's an hour. We'll see what it's like. Okay, there's 70. The steering wheel is up the top there, that's gone green. We're going to test the 3 outer lanes to see how well it holds its own. So first lane here, it's doing a good job. Jump over to the next lane. All right, the steering wheel has gone green and it is drifting out of the lane there. Try that one more time. Yeah, there we go, that is better. Kind of weird that it just went out of the lane there, that was odd. All right, we'll try the outermost lane. Steering wheel is green. No. Yeah, that's not very good. I think that system definitely needs some calibration. Like first lane was fine, which is easy, but second lane it was drifting, and then that outermost lane, it just kind of ignored the line and just left. So yeah, a little bit disappointed there with that setup. Okay, time to do a little bit of performance testing. I want to see how quick this is, because that's my primary concern with this engine, just how fast it'll actually accelerate. And once we get to the end, I'll actually get the guys to overlay some of its competitors as well, so you can see where it sits. Turn traction control off. I'll leave it in 4A, and I might do a run in 2H as well, just to see if it's any better. We'll go all the way through to 120, so here we go. It's funny, it actually feels nice and strong off the line there, so let's see what happens. There's 80, 100, and 120. Alrighty. Let's see how that went. We are on the access road, so it did take a little while to get there. Okay, so 0 to 100. Jeez, that's not bad. 9.37 seconds. That is quicker than a 2-litre Ranger Wild Track. Wow, that's impressive. 80 to 120, 7.52 seconds. So those figures are pretty impressive. I wasn't expecting that. This has 60 Newton meters less torque than a Ranger. So that is impressive. We'll go have one more crack just in 2-wheel drive. So you're getting slightly less power loss without having to engage the front axle. We didn't have any wheel slip, so all right, there's 120. Alrighty, so that was 0 to 100, 9.56, so slightly slower. 80 to 120, 7.48, which is slightly quicker. So yeah, pretty impressed with those numbers. I wasn't expecting that. I did notice there when I had a look at our previous numbers on the Ranger, it was in the wet, and I can't remember in that video whether it affected traction off the line or not. But yeah, pretty impressed there with the Tasman for acceleration. All right, let's do a stop from 100. See what the brake and tyre package is like. All right, we are on ATs here, so I'll caveat that. All right, so 100 to 0. What? 2.76 seconds, 38.17 meters. Oh my God, that is ridiculous. This is stopping like only a couple of meters longer than a Sorento. That is unbelievably good in terms of stopping distance, and it absolutely murders a Ranger. I think a Ranger is typically like over 40 meters. That is unreal, and that is on all terrains. I'll be keen to test this out just on standard tyres to see how that goes, but very impressive. All right, how quick does it go in reverse? Let's find out. Here we go. All right, there it is, 70 172, 72 kilometers an hour. Okay, time to do a little bit of light off-roading here on our light off-road course. I'll run you through the specs that we're working with. The X-Pro actually has a pretty reasonable ground clearance coming in at just over 250 mil. In terms of the approach angle, which is the angle of the face you can approach before you hit the front of the car, that's 32.2 degrees, which is also a reasonable number. Departure angle of 26.2 degrees, which is the same, but in reverse. And then you have weighting depth of 800 mil. In terms of the actual equipment you have in here, you've got four-wheel drive low range, four-wheel drive high range, which will apportion 50% of torque to the front and the rear, and then four-wheel drive low range, which is a torque multiplier. You've also got a rear diff lock that works in two-wheel drive and also all of the four-wheel drive modes. So pretty comprehensive system. Some drive modes here for off-road driving. You've got an off-road screen in the center, which I'm going to flick on. Really cool design, and this is probably the coolest off-road screen I've seen on any car before. It gives you a whole bunch of information, and then the off-road display ahead of the driver. So let's give it a crack. We're going to start off with our two-wheel drive test first. So with our two-wheel drive test, what we're going to do, I want to see what the traction control systems are like. And we have our offset mogul set up here with concrete blocks. We're going to kick up the driver's side rear wheel, and we'll see how well the traction control system works in two-wheel drive high range. So we've basically fully unloaded the front and the rear wheel. I'm going to roll onto the throttle and see what happens. I've just left it in the normal mode just to see how well it copes with this situation first. So rolling onto more and more throttle. Wow, that is impressive. It basically just crawled out of that with no issues at all. So that is two-wheel drive high range, no rear diff lock, just traction control doing all of the work. So very impressive. You can see they've put a fair bit of effort into off-road controls there. You get some brands that'll just spin up and won't go anywhere, whereas that is actually pretty impressive. Okay, so now what we're going to do, this one we attack normally in four-wheel drive high range, but what I'll do, I'll just leave this in four-wheel drive auto so we can see how that fares. And then if it doesn't have any luck, I'll try put it in four-wheel drive high range. All right, so we'll just get it rested onto that bit there. Roll onto the throttle. Again, I've just left traction control running. Wow. That is impressive. Yeah, that is really impressive. All right, let's head over to our hill. I think this is where things are going to get a little bit more challenging. Okay, now our hill has been compacted a little bit, but it's still sort of gnarly enough, a couple of dugout sections. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to put this into low range, so into neutral, drop it down into low range. That will engage the transfer case. There we go. Pop that into drive. So terrain mode, I'll stick it in mud, I guess. It's sort of the closest to what this is. So we'll see what happens. So first up, I'll try going out without the rear diff lock with constant throttle to begin with. And then if it doesn't have, if it does work, I'll come back and do a stop and then a go just to see if it has a hill hold. So just constant throttle there. Nice. Nice. That is genuinely impressive. That is genuinely impressive. It was able to walk up there with without any dramas at all, and that is without the rear diff locked. So I'm feeling pretty good about how this performs off-road. All right, I'm going to drop it through our little mud hole here. All right. Whoops. I don't know what that was. That was my walkie-talkie and a horn honk. All right, so with this off-road screen, if you flick it across, it actually gives you that front-on view. I'm going to put the hill descent control on. So X-Track is the variable speed stuff. We'll actually test that on our hill in just a second. It says, please release brake pedal. Oh, there we go, cool. And then we can, oh nice, increase the speed of that as we go too. This is seriously cool. Very nice. All right, let's go back to the hill. I just want to try X-Track one more time on the hill just to see how well that works. Okay, so with this X-Track stuff, we've actually tested, where's the Land Cruiser or the LX here with this hill ascent stuff, and it actually worked pretty well. So it manages all the traction control stuff for you. So I'm going to flick that on by pushing it down. It's preparing, please release brake pedal, set it up to speed 2, turn the parking sensor off. We'll see how well it copes with these holes in the ground here. I'm laughing because it is managing all of this on its own. Wow. Look, this is genuinely impressive. I wasn't expecting this. We had the LDV Terron here the other day that has a similar system to this, and it kind of didn't work because what it would do is it would get to that first rut and then it would just flare up and it would just keep spinning. It wouldn't actually control itself. This actually climbed that without any dramas at all. I know that the hill's been compacted a little bit there, but going out on a limb here to say this is probably one of the best cars we've tested off-road here. It is just very straightforward and easy. So yeah, very impressed so far. Now last up, we've got rocks. So I'm going to pop this into rock mode. So that has dulled the throttle. I've left it in low range. We'll just see what comfort is like across the rocks here. All right, let's ride the brake with the throttle. Sorry, Sean, he's getting drenched. It's just started raining. Yeah, this feels really nice. It's weird. On the road, it's sort of a little firm and busy, but here on the rocks, those all-terrains really soak up a lot of the bumps there. Just crawling over those really nicely. Yeah, right. All right, there you go. Okay, so Kia Tasman, what do we reckon? You know, it's strange because on paper, this doesn't seem very good. You've got an underpowered engine, you know, big price, design, which you know a lot of people aren't really loving. But when you drive it from in here, it's actually pretty good. The interior is nice. The engine's actually not that bad, and it's fantastic off-road. So I don't know, to me, really the only sticking points are the price and the design. And if you can get past those, you know, it is actually a decent vehicle. So one of the things we need to do some towing, because I need to see how that engine works with towing. The gearbox hunting stuff is really frustrating, and I think if I owned this, that would really annoy me, just it constantly just hunting for gears. So I want to see what it's like with a trailer. We're going to try and book one of these with a tow bar on it so that we can actually test that out, and then I guess that will sort of give us a better indication of how it is. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Would you still just buy a HiLux or a Ranger? Or are you actually going to have a look at one of these? Because if you put the styling to one side, it is actually a pretty compelling package, albeit an expensive one. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.